Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. So today we're doing something special, something I don't think there's any videos on, and it is Projector retrofits on the WJ headlight. And right here is Chris. He's gonna help me out. Chris, what do you do?
We're gonna start by just opening these things up. So I'm gonna show you what we're gonna use before we dive into it, and then we'll start.
I said, what do you do though?
Oh shit. What do I do?
Yeah.
I tear off the lens. I drill fat holes in there. I make a bunch of changes that once you start, you can't go back on. And then we put very expensive projectors in there. And when we're done, we have something that looks stock, but boy, is it not stock.
And this is an example of the work that he does. This is just a blacked out bezel. Is that correct? Anything else on this? Or is that it?
Yeah, that's 100% stock, but the parts are off at custom paint right now.
And he does a bunch of other headlights, mainly GTR headlights right here. And he is one of the best in the business. We're gonna get started with taking this apart, and he's gonna help us go over all the steps that are needed. So let's go and get started. All right, so what's the first thing we're gonna do?
Well, we wanna make sure that we have all our stuff. We've got gloves, we've got a drill, we've got a tool if we need it for not prying. A lot of people make the mistake of using a little flathead to pry open the lights. I'm just gonna use it to make sure that we can remove any little clips or things like that. But we'll just go ahead and dive in.
And these came from DWVO over on Amazon. They hooked us up with this pair, and I'll have them linked down below with a discount that we could get some money off for these headlights if you guys want to do a similar project. And these headlights are ones that I recommend for something like this, and I'll have Chris explain why.
We're gonna take this film off first, and the only reason I'm gonna do that is because we have something that we can set them on later, and we don't want that film cooking on. But John mentioned that these things are what he recommends, and it's because of the type of sealant. It's this sealant that stretches out like that, is really, really easy to work with, and you're gonna see why when we stick them in the oven in a minute. But before that, we gotta pop all these little guys off right here, and we just wanna make sure, if you can, pop it off on the back side of it, because these things can come off weird and actually break the plastic. The clear plastic's easier to break than the black part.
There you go. Hit it from the back.
Hit it from the back. All right, and one last check around the perimeter of the lens to make sure there's no screws or anything holding the lens in. It looks like it was just those 3 clips and the glue that's inside, which is why we're gonna stick them in the oven so that that glue can get soft and we can separate the lens. This is a crazy oven, but it is just like any home oven that you would have in your kitchen. It's at 220 degrees Fahrenheit. Super important you cook at Fahrenheit. If you're in a different country and you do this and you cook it at Celsius, it's gonna melt these into a puddle of plastic. But 220 Fahrenheit is actually really kick back, and you're not gonna melt anything.
And something for you guys to know is he's gonna help me on this set, and the other side of the headlights I'm gonna do myself. I'm gonna take it apart, install all the parts myself. But this is just like a test run for me to see how he's doing it, and then I'm gonna try it myself just so you guys can see that anybody could do it. And a project like this is definitely something that you can do with some guidance. And if you guys want any guidance from this guy, he has a couple courses. They'll be linked down below. You could check them out. And what do they get if they check out the courses?
All right, so you're gonna get access to how to open up your headlights. That's some lights that are sealed easy like these, as well as ones that are more difficult, like the ones we did on the Ram truck for Boosted Motorsports. So you're gonna see that. We open up some R34 Skyline headlights, all sorts of different lights. We'll show you how to open up and reseal those lights.
And he also has a YouTube channel. You can check him out. It's called Fly Ride. It'll be linked down below. He has a bunch of content on there where you can see how to do etching on the projectors, how to install projectors, demonize, stuff like that. But I suggest the courses because they're detailed and you know exactly what you're gonna get.
All right, let's go. So we've got 2 pieces of wood. These are just 2x4s. They don't get hot. I've had these in here forever, and they're not gonna like burst into flame or anything. Again, low temperature, 220. We're just gonna set this guy in there. Wanna make sure that it's not touching anything underneath, and then we just get to let it sit in there. That's gonna be in there for 7 minutes at 220 degrees Fahrenheit. All right, we're gonna do 2 layers of gloves. So I'm gonna put regular gloves on just so that I don't burn my hands.
And I always recommend Gorilla Grip.
Oh yeah, mainly because we want that sponsor. All right, now I'm gonna put these second layer on top. And this is gonna be because if we get glue on these Gorilla Grip gloves, they kind of just become messy and we can't use them as much. So if I do this, then anytime that I wanna do a fresh set, I just replace the disposable gloves on top. I still protect my hands from the heat. And all is well, and we get to keep making stuff for only the cost of 1 pair of disposable gloves. All right, so it's been 7 minutes. I'm gonna do this, and if we've done a good job, then we're not gonna need any more time on the oven, and we won't have melted anything. You see people do this all wrong all the time, and one of the things that they do wrong is they try to open this stuff up with a screwdriver. They pry it in there. We've got the glue hot. We shouldn't need anything but our hands. So,
and if you put a screwdriver, you can mess up the plastic right here. So
yeah,
you don't want to do that.
Definitely not. So look, I didn't even use a thing. These things already just want to fall open. The only time you should use this is if there's little stringies and you don't want them to get glue everywhere. You can kind of catch them with that screwdriver. So this part right here, I can feel that it wants to let go, but it's also catching on the inside. So there we go. Now we're good.
And I suggest follow this video so you can see how he's opening it and kind of do the same thing he's doing.
And you always want to make sure that there's no little tabs or anything that's holding it together. And again, just use your hands because you're not going to damage any part of the light if you're using your hands, whereas a tool can bend and create little indentations in the plastic, and that's no good. The most important part about opening the lights is doing it in a way that later when you go to seal the lights, it's not going to have any problems. So granted, you can just throw a screwdriver in there and start prying on stuff. It takes way less time to reseal when you've opened them without creating any problems. All right. This is the last little corner right here that I just want to make sure. If you can see what's happening is this lens is coming off, but the inside part is not coming off. So that means that we got to just kind of do it a lot more patient just to get this last little section. And then it seems like the clear plastic should just slide over this part. And I'm just looking again to make sure that there's no screws or anything. I don't see anything, so I think we're okay. It just wants us to lift straight off.
I've seen him open up different headlights, and these are actually pretty simple. It's looking like.
Oh, look at that. That's one thing that we didn't see the whole time.
Right there.
So this Staples. Is probably something that you might see this from time to time in different lights, but instead of a screw, they just literally stapled right through both pieces of plastic.
And that's normal to see.
Yeah, it's not super uncommon to see a staple like that. But if we would have kept trying, we could have easily messed up part of the plastic. Now I want to just make sure there's no other staples. And there we go.
There it is.
All good. So now the only last little thing to be concerned with is just making sure that we don't accidentally get any of this glue on parts of the plastic inside. You know what? This seems like it's coming with me. This seems like it's not, and there is a screw right there, but I didn't think that it had anything to do with the clear lens. What I think it is the lens is going to come out with the internal little bezel now. And I bet you anything, that would have made this whole thing easier if we would have taken that out first. And look, yep, now it's coming up. So, when John does this, he should actually make it look way easier than me. And that's why the online courses and the videos on YouTube, they're important, because if somebody's going to make a mistake, it might as well be me instead of you. So that little screw would have made this come off in probably like 20 seconds. But instead, I was just trying to be careful and make sure that we did it right. So there we go.
That's it. So the reason I want to do one side myself is so that you guys can see that it's possible for you to do. You don't require a Chris to do this job. You can do it yourself at home. So we'll go ahead and do the next part and taking the little bezel out. So that's it. This is all that's in the headlight. So it's the reflectors. What is this called? The bezel?
Yeah.
And then the lens, and that's it.
Yep. And a lot of times what people like to do in lights, especially when they're really easy to open and close without too much effort, is they like to take out the amber reflector on the side. So let's see if we can do that, and if it looks cool without it in there.
I was actually thinking of removing that, or maybe even tinting it black if it looks bad without it.
Yeah, a lot of times it will look completely fine if you remove it, but sometimes it looks stupid when you remove them. So you never know until you pop them off. So if you're going to be handling this much, which we're not going to be, then you'd want to put gloves on and stuff. Another thing is, if anything gets on the inside of this lens, you can't really clean in there. A lot of people are confused and think that they can just polish something out, but that plastic will scratch easily, so easily, just massive scratches, even if you're using like a microfiber cloth. So don't ever touch the inside.
And he recommends putting these down with the outside up. That way nothing gets under there. No dust, no fingerprints.
No evidence. That's the plan.
No nothing.
Hey. There we go. Okay,
There it is.
so if we think that that looks terrible, I don't think it looks terrible. If John does, then he can paint this, which I don't know. I think this looks worse than that, but whatever.
I would say check with your state laws. You might need a reflector in your headlight, but I honestly think this looks way better. And I think we should actually blast this with the sandblaster. What do you think?
Yeah, that'll be cool. It's not going to be used to reflect any light like side markers would. It's just going to give it a much more solid appearance when it's lit up by the bulbs that we're going to stick in the inside.
So we don't have the projectors in yet, but we're going to show you something that... We're going to show you a projector that we're going to use and how it's going to be installed.
So the projectors that we're going to get are actually LED projectors. This is a xenon or like an HID projector. It's all old and dusty, you can tell, but the shape and the size are very similar. And the idea is that we're just going to have to open up that hole so that we can run the projector to sit all the way in the back. You can see those threads are kind of like catching on the inside. But then with the projector threads coming out the other side, we'll be able to put one of these little locking nuts on there, and then we're gonna JB quick or JB weld it into place so that it can't come out anymore. It'll look like it belongs in there, but we're gonna seat that projector back as far as we can and seal them up, and my guy's gonna have the brightest headlights ever.
And another thing is this reflector thing, you can paint it whatever color you want. We're gonna do it blacked out just so you can't see the reflector part. So it's gonna have 2 low beams and then 2 high beams as well, each thing. So they're called bi-LED projectors. So this thing's gonna be super bright. I'm excited to see what the outcome's gonna be like.
Yeah, and if you're not gonna finish all on the same day, I always recommend you take your lens that's sitting out and just stick it temporarily back in place over your headlight bucket.
And that'll be enough just to keep everything clean inside. No fingerprints, no dust.
All right, more to come.
So that's pretty much it, how to take a headlight apart. I know I didn't do the job this time, but when we get all the parts in, I'm definitely going to do the other side myself and try it out, see how good I do versus him right here. So we're going to use something like this, a projector. Is there anything you guys want to see specifically for this? Like a demon eye or an angel eye or something like that? I'm not going to do everything, just maybe one of those things just so you guys can see. Or maybe even etching the lens. Is that something you guys want to see on the channel? And if so, what? Like, what do we do? I don't know. I want to take you guys' suggestions. For sure, we're not going to use that orange reflector. Just, it doesn't look good. You guys are going to have to wait until the parts come in. Same as me, I have to wait, even though I'm excited to get this done. But anyways, we'll see you guys on the next video. Shout out to Chris for helping us out. Go check him out down below. And I'll see you guys on the next one. Peace.